Our lives over 30 years ago. We all unite in our request for their continued good health, for Coach Strom and his staff. And we ask that you guard and protect each of them and their families as only you can do. We offer our humble appreciation for all you've given us, our families, and the 10-0 experience as it set a standard in our lives. Lastly, God, we offer our prayer to the families of our departed team members. They are missed by both the players and the coaches of this team and their loved ones. We ask all these things in your name, God, and forgiver of our sins. Amen.
This live? I think it's appropriate that you look around the room, and this is our second night together, and you realize that some of the people in this room came a long ways for our reunion for this football team. Some of us didn't travel back for our class reunions, but we came back for the reunion of this football team. I think it's exciting that Jim Yingling called. He told me early on about this. He put his committee together. Quite frankly, living far from Altoona, I never expected this many to come back. I thought if he could put 25 men in this room, he would have done a good job. Especially when I look at some of my class reunions with almost 990 people graduating and the small amount we get back. This is a great turnout. I think we all owe Jim Yingling, Bill Shawley, and Sam Mayanuzzi. They were the three Altoona people that put this together. A round of applause. It was a great weekend for it. You have to realize that 10 years from now, things will change. Life's going to go on. This is not part of my 3 minutes, by the way. This is an introduction. I sat at Sam's today, going through the scrapbook. I apologize that my name is underlined. You have to realize that when Jim called and said he was putting this together, I said I happen to have some things from that year, and he said, like what? And I said, my dad didn't throw anything away from that year. He said, like what? He said, my dad has the programs for each of those games. He said, my dad had the ticket stubs to each of those games. He said, my dad had the news articles from all the out-of-town papers that we played in. He collected them, he was proud of them, and he died shortly after I graduated, and that sat in my closet for all these years. I was reluctant to give it up. And I thought, well, it's better that all of us enjoy what he saved for that team than just me having it locked away, and I apologize for those underlines. Going through that scrapbook today, I picked out some things that were kind of exciting for me to look at, because it's been a long time since I went through that word to word. The Sunday Chronicle in Allentown had this quote in the paper, and you'll laugh at this, I did. Jeff Miller and Bob Fogel, speedy Altoona halfback. Now, some of us see something wrong with that picture, not from Jeff's viewpoint. You notice that that hotel bill is in there from the Hotel Easton. $10. Earl reminded me of this when I got here and I didn't know it. He worked at a grocery store with my dad. Earl did the vegetables, my dad did the cheese. I always knew my dad to work 2 jobs. I remember Chuck Renner's dad out there behind the practice field with a trunk full of orange juice or lemonade. I remember a lot of your dads out there. If they're still living, you come home from this reunion, you call them on the phone, and you tell them you love them, because they were there for us. The scouting reports I looked at. Somebody, and I asked Jack Hopper who printed and who wrote, and he kind of deferred to the issue. He didn't admit it. We need the following to defeat McKeesport. If you didn't pay any attention to that, they had these listed. Number 1, hustle. Number 2, desire. Number 3, determination. Number 4, good attitude. Number 5, alertness. And number 6, pride. And they had an equal sign there, and they said, we represent Altoona High School. And I'll tell you what, not too many teams represented Altoona High School as well as this one. If you didn't notice, in their programs cost 20 cents. This was in there from the Easton Express. Easton's previously strong defense riddled 32-14 by a powerful Altoona High School 11. The 11 I take exception with. There were 62 players in that picture, and that's what that headline should have read. Riddled by an Altoona High School 62. Because even some of you underclassmen, whom I haven't seen for 33 years, realize you made a great contribution to that team. And even some of you men who maybe didn't see as much action, like a Sam Iannuzzi, who spent 3 years being double-teamed by Joe Nicodemus and I, made a contribution to that team. The scouting report from the Indiana game, and how many of us could forget this? And I quote, whichever coach wrote this, we took them lightly last year, and they had this underlined. We did nothing. A lot of us found out in that Indiana game our junior year that it wasn't too hard to cry, because that was a devastating loss. We talked about it back here at the bar. Take that loss away, and this coach here and his coaching staff run one heck of a roll for wins, because that would have been 20, and as many as they had won the year before to close out, and as many as they go into the next year. They're probably looking at 30 consecutive wins at Altoona, and that's one hell of a record. This is from the Bob Fogel asked us last night, and fortunately I was going through that scrapbook and I found it. He said he didn't think we lost a coin toss all year long. You read that scrapbook, and Herb Warner wrote, Bet Center, Altoona lost a coin toss for the first time in 7 games. So it's in that scrapbook. We did lose a coin toss. We kicked the hell out of Bet Center, and we lost a coin toss. The Johnstown scouting report. And I'll tell you, for those of us who are not from Altoona now, who have been out of town, the Altoona-Johnstown series is still remembered statewide. That was one hell of a battle between Johnstown and Altoona. The quote in that scouting report was, your school, city, and coaches will be with you all the way. There were 8,000 people at that football game last night. I hear one of the largest crowds they've had at Altoona High School Stadium since we departed. And I think it's a credit that that quote stands to this day, that your school, your city, and your coaches will be with you all the way. This was a quote in there, and I had a hard time fathoming this, but I remember it. Several thousand people showed up for the remaining 600 tickets to the Altoona-Johnstown game our senior year, and the Altoona police force had to be called to the ticket window. That's a high school football team. And I would say that this city had a lot of pride in us for that many people to show up. I noticed this after I was closing up the scrapbook and Janet Iannuzzi was trying to feed me sweet rolls. From looking at you gentlemen last night, faces change, hair gets gray, and our halfbacks slow down. But all of us still have their heart in that 62 football team. Earl, if you didn't pay any attention, looks younger today than he did in that football photograph from his college football team. He actually looks younger today, and I think it's a credit to his lifestyle and a credit to what he set for us, that he's maintained himself so well. Lastly, on my introduction, I was at a Pennsylvania State Camp Cadet program, and I was listening to Richie Saul, an offensive guard for the Los Angeles Rams, talking. And he's from Butler, and I know Rich and Ron Saul. And he used kind of a definition that really came back to me. He asked these 13-year-old kids the definition of discipline. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't think that this coaching staff tried to instill discipline in us. But I'll bet you if I asked you to write down on a card right now your definition of discipline, it will be different than mine, if not different from the person next to you. But I think Richie Saul captured what I think the definition of discipline that they instilled in us. He said, and I like it, discipline is the bridge between our beliefs and our actions. And you cross that bridge every day. And from the 52 people I see in this room, we've crossed that bridge quite well. And I'm proud of you. I'm going to call on your names. We have a list of speakers in the box, am I right? Tags. You're entitled to 3 minutes. If you didn't read the letters, he's got a hook over here. If you're on a roll, you got more than 3 minutes. If you're, Steve Howe says he got the cane ready. If you're killing the crowd, you're out of here. So you got 3 minutes or more, depending on what you're going to say. And I don't think you can go wrong speaking from the heart. And I'll bet you everybody in here is going to speak from the heart. Who's first? Jim Yingling's first. Another round of applause. It was his show.
How it all started was Sam Iannuzzi and I were in Mansion Park last August. His boy was playing soccer on the football field, and my boy was playing football on a baseball field. And I said, what do you think Earl would say if he saw those pantyways kicking that white ball around wearing shorts? Sam and I came to the conclusion that it was an honor to play for these guys. And nobody's ever patted them on the back, and we thought it was time. So we got, Sam and I were actually a household name in 1962, and we decided to go with this. And 2 linemen, by the way. So originally we were going to, on our next class reunion, we were going to call Earl up and have him out for lunch. And later on that day, I saw Sam, and I said, Sam, you know, Harry Dingus was a coach, and Ronnie Brickens and Hopper, and we ought to call them and have them out. I said, okay. So later on, we said, you know, there were some juniors that played on that team too, and we ought to have them too, and the junior high coaches, and it just kind of snowballed and snowballed to what it got. And they prepared us. You know, football's a tough game, and life's just as tough. Earl last night and I, we sat on the bench. Earl said, you know, Jim, it's the first time I sat on a bench. And I said, not for me, Coach. Taught us a lot, it really did. And then Glenn Butler and Dean Rossi, we come up through the program, and John Brannick and Carl Luckner, we ran the same plays for 6 years. And the guys in junior high, they taught us the fundamentals, and when we got to high school, they kind of fine-tuned us. So, first up is Bob Black.
All right. I get my 3 minutes, or even less, perhaps. But I was trying to think what this team meant to me, and trying to explain it to my daughter, who came up with me and watched the game last night. Trying to explain this to a girl, a senior in high school, was probably more than I was up for, because she didn't quite understand what this is all about. But what I would say is that we had a lot of teamwork, and I think that was a critical part of it. And I think we wanted to win. I think we wanted to win very badly. But what seemed to me to be different, I think a lot of teams play well together, a lot of teams want to win, but I think we worked hard as hell. I think we had a very dedicated team. I think Danny's word of what'd you use? Danny, what was your description of it? Discipline, right? I think that's a good word for it. But I'm just trying to think of the metaphor of life. Maybe the 7-man sled we were talking about earlier. So hitting one end, spinning around, hitting another one, and going back the whole way through and moving it forward. And I think we worked hard at it. So I have great memories of that, and this has been a fantastic weekend. I'd like to thank the organizers of this as well, and certainly like to thank the coaches for all they did for us. Thanks.
Dan Lee.
I hope. Nice.
Yeah.
I'm here. No.
Oh.
Come on over.
No. When we first got this committee together, Sam and I, Sam did a heck of a job. He did all the advertising, and he was a treasurer. And we needed some big names, so we called Bill Shawley, had him. He was a big blanket winner, you know. And Dan McKnight. We had to.
Another lineman.
Yeah, another lineman. You know, see that, Bob? We had 4 linemen on this committee. Danny did all the letterheads. He designed everything. He did all the letters. We'd call each other, and we'd write each other, and until we got these letters together, and we'd mail them out every month. And Sam raised all the money, and Bill went to Botech when we scanned the scrapbook. We had to scan it. It took about 3 weeks. And so these guys did a heck of a job. So next up, Jim Nardell. All linemen so far, Bob.
I'm glad I had the opportunity to talk with you. Like it's already mentioned, we've had reunions in the past. I never came to them. 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20. And because it just wasn't in kind of like within my past, kind of like where I was at and when I look forward to the future. But when I started getting the letters, each letter tapped another memory. Each letter meant a little bit more. And I didn't come back to relive my past. I came back as a junior on this team, one who was fortunate. If I could write a book about my life, I'd call it lucky. I grew up in a town that loved football, at a time that they loved football, with a team that loved football, and we, I think, all know what football meant to us and what it did for us in our lives. But why I came back was not just for football. It was, in a sense, I want to personally thank you for giving me the opportunity to see what it was like, what I needed to get to, what I needed to drive for to be productive and good as a junior. And also, I wanted to personally thank you for the chills that I get even now. Driving from Harrisburg to Altoona, my body went into chills about 7 times. I don't get chills about very many things. And I want to thank you for those chills. It's a few things that I really, really love.
We're here tonight to thank the coaches. They were great to us. Earl was on top there, and there was a line, a fine line, and we knew not to cross it. Ron Rickens was a little buffer for us, the lineman, you know, we could joke with Ron, and Jack Hopper, you know, it was great. So, that's why we're here tonight, to thank the coaches. That we went 10-0 was a plus, but these guys were great. Next up is Bob Prindable. Back.
A big back. When I first got the letter, I think the first thing, it just sort of flooded me with emotion. Over the years, I think when I first graduated from school, like a lot of you, I relived a lot of the stories, a lot of the games. And the older I tended to get, I started to forget. And I remember the good things. About the only bad thing I remember an entire season was when Jake got wiped out at Uniontown. But when I kept getting the letters, I kept getting more and more flooded with emotion. And I kept thinking about, we'd not really sort of put this team to bed. We'd not really had a time where we could actually sit down and sort of celebrate together. We really didn't have a time where we could really honor the coaches. I think the one coach is not here that, personally for me, did a lot for me was Wally. I think Wally took a bad rap sometimes because he was the disciplinarian and he's the guy that jumped on us, but he was a hell of a football coach. He taught Jake and I and Bobby a lot in the backfield that I don't think we would have learned. I want to thank the junior high school coaches because I think we may have been the first class that started with the system in 7th grade and worked it all the way through. I did come back to relive some of the past. Okay, I enjoy the stories. I enjoy hearing some of these things that I've never heard. I haven't heard for a long, long time. I'm not quite sure that we could get uniforms big enough to fit us anymore. We asked Earl earlier why the numbers are all above 48 or 49, and Earl just said, well, you order the uniforms and they send you what they got. And that's why we all had those high numbers. But now I think we'd probably have to have all those high numbers. I guess the thing I want to do is thank all you guys. For Danny's sake, I want to thank all the linemen for all the blocks, except for Danny. Okay. But I think what I want to thank you most for. When I look back at that, it was a total team effort. I think that we started before the beginning of the season. I remember a lot of us went up to Fairview and started practicing before we were supposed to. I think it was either Peach or Trexler who started saying 10-0 before the season started, and that was a goal. And that's something we realized. And that's something not too many people can say, that they've obtained a really hard goal. And I'm glad we're here to talk about it. Thank you.
Next up, Dave McNichol.
The next Dave Letterman. You know, when I walked in last night, he asked me if I wanted to say something. I don't remember saying yes. But I guess I'm here, and I guess I have to say something. I just want to say how much I enjoyed coming back and seeing all the guys again. It's hard to recognize some of them, but other guys seem to see me do them right away. Most of all, I'd like to thank the coaches. And I just want to tell Glenn Butler, back when I was in 7th or 8th grade, he walked up to me in the cafeteria and he said, "Dave," well, he called me Slim back then. He said, "Slim," he says, "I remember watching you going over 28th Street the other day with that little thing in your hand that was burning." Glenn, I never did smoke and never have. And you never believed me. But I want to thank the coaches, Earl and Ron, Coach Singus. I can never call him anything but Coach Singus. Coffee. Guys, one of the things that I learned, I went into coaching myself, was their patience. I don't ever remember them hollering and getting excited when we were going through all those years. I don't remember that. Right? Then I went away to college. I don't remember. But when I went away to college, it seemed like all the coaches were hollering and screaming then. But it was nice because when you think back, there was a lot of nice things that we picked up from these coaches, besides the disciplines and things like that. And I'd like to say thanks to Coach Rossi, who gave me a start in coaching, and he went to Derry area. And in trouble with me, I still haven't gotten out of Derry area yet. And Ron Rickens, I owe him a big thank you because I remember many, many years ago when I was 1 year out of high school, he came to my house one day, got me out of bed, and sent me on the road to where I am today. And I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thanks for everything, guys, and it was a real nice trip down memory lane.
Anybody that wants to say anything and didn't sign up, raise your hand. We'll have you up there. Next up, Jeff Miller.
Jim.
Thanks, Jim. I'll be brief, other than to say that, I love all you guys. Really, this has been probably the, the culmination of the everything I've ever thought about. You guys have lived with me ever since I graduated from high school. All of you are, a very, very real part of my memory, and I'd like to thank the coaches that really changed my life and made me able to do some of the things that I've been able to do. I don't think without your training and confidence and you guys know who I'm talking about, I would have been able to do some of the things that I've done in my life. One of the things I'd like to kind of bring up, and Bob touched on this a second ago, but I don't know that anybody's, in all our conversations and everything, nobody's ever mentioned the fact or brought up, does anybody remember when Sanker took us to the end of the field, the practice field, and got us all together? And this is when Earl was going to retire. The rumor was out that Earl was going to retire. And Sanker got us all together, and he says, look, this is Earl's last year. Let's give him an undefeated season. You guys remember that? Now, we did that. And you talk about setting goals and doing it. and then have the guys that you're trying to do it for help you do it. I mean, that's incredible. I think all of us have something and have memories that will probably be carried to the grave. But you got to know that, and I'm sure that I'm not alone, that, you know, I love each and every one of you, and I'll carry my memories of this team and my times with you to the grave. It'll be one of the most cherished things in my life.
Anybody? Next up's a guy I went through junior high with in high school. We had a great time, got in a lot of trouble. He was a quarterback. He really wasn't. He was okay. And Harry changed him to a halfback. He came into his Bobby Folk.
I said I didn't want to talk. Why do I take all this abuse? Why me? I was quiet, never got in any trouble, everything went fine and whatever we were doing. But anyways, as I was coming in, as I did, I know all, and everybody, and nobody will admit to it, but when I came in here the night before, I got the yearbook out and I started checking them. I don't remember all these names and everything. And I got through the first row and the second row and the third row, and I come up with the names. Of course, all the backfield people, I knew all their names. So I came in here, and guys come up and started shaking my hand, and nobody put name tags on anybody, of course. We didn't want to do that. It was more fun to figure it out. So there was a guy come up to me. Oh, I sat down. We were sitting there eating, and he said, "Bob Togo, how you doing?" And I said, "Couldn't remember his name." And we talked for a while, and he said, "You'll remember me." Well, he stood up, and he started to go to lunch. Now I noticed that all the way across everybody, I started to remember names. I couldn't tell by their faces, particularly the linemen. But I could tell by all their asses. But that's the only thing I ever seen. And this guy was named John Kearns. And I remember that, but the reason why I remember that, because like Yannick says, I used to be a quarterback, and I don't know what took you guys so long to get me out of that position. But anyway, I used to be a quarterback, and I had problems of, as Bill Shaw could relate to. Over at Keys, we were over there, we held our hands like this. Well, then we came over to high school, we held them like this. I liked it better that way. But I had a tendency to lose my train of thought and move my hands. And of course, the quarterbacks, or the centers were supposed to snap that ball back as hard as they could snap it back. And if you pulled your hands out like that there, they kind of crunked up and whatever. But I also had another problem. I'd line up behind the guard and whatever. I knew everybody by the back end. But I really enjoy this here, and I think we all have. And it's just a good time to get together. We've talked about this 10-0 season and different things, and I think what we had was a bunch of overachievers. Because I said it before, when we were in 8th grade, we had an excellent, the 9th graders at Roosevelt and at Keith were good. They were good. They were great. When we came to high school, of course, we were the juniors, and the seniors were supposed to have a good team, and they had a good team. But our year, I don't think anybody really thought that, hey, these guys are a good football team. And I'm not so sure if we did either until that Uniontown affair. And of course, the second half of the Uniontown. And then we went down and we played Chambersburg, and Chambersburg was a rich nine, and they were supposed to be such a good team. And we beat that team. And then it just started to snowball more and more and more. I think we started to believe in each other, and with the coaching staff pushing us. That was a great help to us for us to go undefeated, and it was a good year. Another thing I wanted to say was, you linemen. I guess I got to give credit where credit's due, but I can still look over there. And Rick talked about it. We were talking last night, him grabbing poor Mildy by the face mask and rubbing him down into the ground, pulling his head down into the mud and whatever, and screaming and yelling. And we just stood back, just kind of stood back. Mr. Daniels took good care of us. We kind of stood back and watched these guys come sweaty, muddy, and whatever else. But we appreciated it, and we appreciated it at the time. We had some good ribbons. It was a good affair with everybody. Jim. Is this the end of the line?
No.
I thought they were saving the best till last, but I guess they're not. Anyhow, I have a lot of memories. From way back in 6th grade when my dad started kicking my hind end every other week and saying, "You are going to play football," and I said, "No, I'm not." And he had some other ways of convincing me that I was. So eventually I got into 7th grade and got to meet these gentlemen that you've known by name here. And I think of John Brannick and Carl all the time. Fun things we had over at their school, like bull in a ring, and they told us what a fun thing that was going to be. And I can still remember the bloody noses and the ripped skin and all the rest of that, I guess, along with that particular game. And they had this other fun thing called running the chalk lines, which was, sounded interesting, so we did it the first or second time, and sometimes the third time. And it sort of lost its charm in a real hurry. So, there were fond memories of those guys, and I really thank those guys for the good start they gave us, because I really think, without those guys giving a charge in your rear end, we wouldn't have mounted it much, later on. And, I really thank those guys. But somehow, I don't know what happened to me. I've never figured it out, but my understanding was I was supposed to go from junior high to the JV team, get your brains and butt kicked around for a year or so there before you finally started working up. But I think there were some flunkies in the high school at that time that were on the centers, and for some reason there was an opening there, so I got to bypass the JVs there. And I thought, hey, this is going to be pretty nice. I'm going to get out of all that, headbutting and all that and the other stuff that goes with the JV team. I got up there and I started looking around. I can remember the first time going to practice and stuff. I saw this guy at a distance, and they called him Coach Strome. And I wasn't sure who he was. In fact, first time I went over, I said, "Who the hell is this guy, Coach Strome?" And pretty soon I saw this thing at the side of the field. It's sort of like a totem pole, one of these kind of things. And as I looked around, I thought, who is this guy? But I found out pretty soon that he was like that, money-making thing. When Earl spoke, you better listen. And as a result, I soon found out who Earl was. The nice thing about it, I never had to talk to Earl much. He was always that guy with the tackles and the defensive guys, and I never got to talk to him much. In fact, I talked to him more out here at the bar the other day than I did in 3 years or so. But I knew he was the key to this whole thing. And I really want to thank Ron. Ron's the guy. Somebody was up here a while ago, Dave or somebody, and said, "Oh, they never yell." Well, they never had Ron grab your face and that, like this right in front of your face, and then either wrap your helmet or give you a shot somewhere, and send you flying. But, Ron was my kind of guy. Big forearm, quiet voice unless he was talking to you, and all these other things. But these guys made up my life. I had my dad back here. He was always going that way, and like Danny said, he was one of these fathers that was always behind us. I wasn't ever sure what he was doing back there. He was always back there. I think it was the end of his foot or something I kept coming in contact with. But anyhow, there's a whole bunch of guys in my life, and this group of guys right here has meant the most to me out of all the people I've ever associated with. And I just hate to see tonight come to an end. Jim and I keep kicking around ideas of booking a plane and getting together in Florida or someplace in 5 years or whatever. I don't know whether I want to wait 5 years. It's been a pleasure. Some of the faces didn't ring up here. Of course, a lot of things don't. But I appreciate everything you guys have done and everything you've been to me, and especially to Coach Strome and to the rest of the guys back there to help him out. Thank you.
We remember Bill's dad, right? 12,000 people at Mansion Park, and Bill missed a block, and the coach missed it, and the cameraman missed it. His dad would say, "Bill, you missed your block," and you could hear him. Next up, Jerry Sang. You want to say something, Jay?
Thank you. Yeah, I just originally, whenever I walked in, Tom and I walked in and they said, "Do you want to say something?" And I felt obligated. And I felt obligated because what is here and what this means to me, and looking out over you, this is a class act. You don't find this everywhere. You find people that play football, they're tough guys, they do things. But guess what? Most of you are back. You're here. You all know what football meant as far as an education. And one thing you've got to bring up is, when Earl spoke, you had to listen, but you had to be quiet to hear him. We didn't have that problem with the ends and tackles. That was the linemen. With the ends and tackles that lined up on the other side of the field. Because when he said, "Come on in," you moved in. You knew he wanted to say something. Or when he got behind you and he spoke to you, lower, higher, now hit him. And he counted cadence very well. But we really appreciate from everybody, I'm sure, okay, but just how much the coaching staff and everybody together, not realizing years from back then we would all get together again, but knowing we didn't have a whole lot of animosity against one another back there. Age is a great thing. Kind of soothes everything out, makes everybody come together. And all those hard times we had, they reference about pushing Sam around. We had to, Milt and I had the same thing on the other side of the line. But guess what? Those people were here. That's a tribute to the coaching staff and the class of people. And I appreciate one other now. Thanks, Herb.
You want to say something, Jake? Another guy.
Skilled players are not
Yeah, I'm sure I'm like everybody else. They walk in the room and you begin to get going down memory lane and all the things that went with that and a lot of good feelings and we're doing friendships and all that. But it's more than football. It's more than that senior year of 10-0. It's more than being on the varsity. I got down to the JV spill. We went through that stuff. Some good head knocking, which was a lot of fun. And back in Keith, there was a lot of social, I think, things with this. We went to school with everybody. We spent a lot of time together. And this guy over here, when I got the first letter, I called him and said, "What's going on here?" Well, I laughed on the phone for 20 minutes the first time I talked to him. And every time I spoke to him, I laughed. One of the things I remember is I went to Keith in ninth grade. It was the first time I played football. Well, I met Jim in the process. And what I learned out of that was you met Jim in the hall every morning because you'd be either outside Mr. McLean's office or the library, and you had the joke of the day. And he still has the joke of the day and keeps us going, and Jim, thanks. I appreciate that, and that's a great memory for me. All the fun. When you think of the team and everything that we did, 2020 hindsight's pretty good. We all can zero in on that pretty well. Danny mentioned teamwork. I think the things we learned about trusting each other, depending on each other, each of us doing our job, made a difference. It made a difference to the team. It's made a difference in our life. It's made a difference in business. If you apply that principle, it works every time. And I think we learned that real well on the team. When you walk in the rooms, you think about, am I going to know people and whatever? But before long, you're chatting with someone, there's bantering going on, and it's as if that practice didn't end 3 decades ago. That practice may have ended just a couple days ago. And quickly, we're bonding with each other, and I think out of what we went through as a team, and there's very few organizations in your life where you find this. It's generally not the people you work with, it's generally not your neighbors, but it's people where you go through a lot together, and you win, that you have that bond. And I think we all have that bond, and you see it when we all have a lot of fun in this room. And none of us really want it to end. Jim, to you and Bill and Danny and Sam, you guys could not have done this thing better than you did, in my opinion. I mean, you work this up with letters every month. In fact, my wife said, "Who is this guy Yingling? You know, what are all these letters you're getting that's going on?" But I want to tell you, the performance just matched the expectation, I think, for all of us. And we had a Navy term, when something happened that was far superior to anything that you wanted, we had a signal that we either sent with a signal flag or a flashing light or a message. And we sent that, and it was clearly recognized that someone did an outstanding job. And that signal was Bravo Zulu, and it means well done. And for me, to you guys, Bravo Zulu for just an outstanding job. Earl, when I think back on our team, and I was only up there 2 years working with you, I really think it was your eagle-sharp vision and your flair for innovation in that offense that really made a difference and brought around that 10-0 team. Now, seriously, we know that Wally kept hitting you because he had to give you the numbers of who made what play, good or bad. But I think your vision was probably more eagle-sharp than any of us realized. I mean, you took a group of guys from all different backgrounds, you shaped us into a team, and probably more importantly, as you talked about last night, not only were you shaping us a team, you were shaping us into citizens for tomorrow. And you look around this room, I think there's some pretty doggone good citizens. Thanks for that. I want to recognize my Uncle Carl in the back, Carl Luckner. He was my first coach when I went up to Keith in 9th grade. And many of you know I lost my dad early. And he served a lot as a father figure for me, and he helped me. He kicked me in the butt when I needed to be doing that. He pushed me to do new things. But he taught me a lot, and I hope he taught you a lot. One lesson I remember is there's always negative leadership and positive leadership. And he stood out to me as a positive leader, where he showed you what you could do by working with someone and helping them understand what you're trying to do rather than getting a clipboard wrapped across your helmet. And I learned a lesson that I applied in my life in the military for 26 years and in business and just working with people. That one made a real difference to me, is when I remember clearly from the 9th grade football team, and I want to thank you for that. You've been a great inspiration and help, and you've been an impact in my life more than you realize. Danny mentioned that he was double teaming poor Sam back there. We would not have been here if we didn't have the suicide squads that every week learned those plays from the other team. And I want to thank all those guys who stood up, and they didn't get the headlines. Their names weren't in the programs as starters. They didn't get the recognition or anything else. But we could not have done it without every single person on that team. And thanks a lot, guys, for all of that. So Jim, turn this back over to you. Thanks. The coaching staff, thanks for everything you did for all of us as people. And I want to say how proud I am, not only to have been a member of the football team, just to be in a room of the quality people that you are. Thanks.
Next up, Peach Currents.
Make sure it's clean. Yeah, turn around.
It's been an incredible weekend, and to put it together, I mean, I agree with what everybody's saying. What I realized through this weekend, because I've gone to the reunions, and sometimes I've been disappointed that people didn't come that should have come. But what this deal is a continuum. I started in 7th grade with Luckner and Jerry Gutschall and John Brannick, and to me, Jim Curry and Geach, who was here today, and that whole group were like titans. I mean, you could not possibly have reached the heights that those teams got. And by the time I got to high school, the concept of being on this team was an incredible, I mean, just being on the field was an incredible thing. And so it didn't start with us and it didn't finish with us, and I don't know how many years it went back, but it was a bunch. And I know it went on a bunch after we were gone. And the common thread in this is Earl and his group of guys he put together. And I've never met better people in my life. I've always wanted to be like these people, and I've fallen far short of that. But, you know, simply put, I've never met better people, and I have been around. I mean, I lived 10 or 12 different places around this country. I've seen some schools and operations, and I'm sure all of you can say that you went to college and you never really saw the quality that you saw here. I mean, it was a disappointment. And that's on a lot of levels. I mean, the people and the personalities, but the football. The knocks that these guys took, and the beauty of Earl and the whole group was that they just didn't listen. You know, they're teaching fundamentals here. And these people are teachers, and we learned the damn fundamentals. There wasn't any of us, I don't care who played where or what, that didn't know how to block a person, how to tackle a person, and how to make it all happen. And there's no magic here. You know, they simply knew what to do, told us how to do it, and repeated it again and again and again, and showed us how, and it fall into place. And that's what we learned. I'm trying to tell my daughter, another common thread is we all have kids, and when we sit and talk to each other, we talk about these kids. I wrote a 9-hour letter to my daughter who was having a bit of a time with a guy. And I said, I don't want to make this sound crazy, but this teamwork thing is something that is true. And we don't bitch. You come back, you just keep doing your work until you get your work done. And nobody complains at somebody, and nobody does this and that and whines. You just simply do the job. And when you get back in the huddle and you screwed up, nobody's yelling at you, screaming, what the hell, why did you let me in? It was just simply, what can we do to help Kearns keep somebody out? Who's doing it to us. So it was just so many positive reinforcements that were occurring, but that I try to explain to her about guys and what guys are like. And if they learned these kinds of lessons in their life, then that's the kind of guy you want. But if they didn't pick that up through some kind of positive experience, I said, get out of there. Just, go on with it, because it's not going to happen. But and the other thing I spent most of my life somehow with management and whatever, but these guys were managers. Jerry Gutschall, who we thought was going to die this week, he finally woke up, and I'm telling him about the time, and he said, Earl and I went to Shippensburg together, and he said, you know how smart this guy is. And I never had thought about it. He's a quiet guy. I said, he says, he's an incredibly smart guy. Got A's in the whole thing. And of course he is. I mean, this management thing that he put together, and this group of people put together from 7th grade to 12th grade, and the way he led them and the way he got it done is a management genius. The guy's a football genius. You can't do 62 and, we did everything together. You double teamed, and two of us could move out anybody, and we learned that. And run that play for 6 years and not have the timing and have it done. I mean, this isn't, amazing things. It's just that's what happens after 6 years. You simply know how to do it. So I thank them all, and it's just a, obviously impressive thing, and appreciate the time. Thank you.
Want to say something, Mel? You've been over there thinking. I've been watching him all evening. He didn't sign up, but you're up.
I've been involved with football since we were done playing. I coached here and so forth. And I feel sorry for the people who have followed. You try to explain what we had. I mean, like everybody's been saying, there was something so special. I mentioned somebody last night, when we would go on an away trip, and we would get off the bus,
people would stand around and they just watched. They wanted to see Altoona. Our reputation preceded us, and there was this awe. And we weren't cocky. Well, most of us weren't. Buddy was, but I mean, we were very confident though. And you know, we had the support of the coaches, and we knew, we didn't know when, we didn't know how, but we knew somebody was going to do what had to be done to win. And I said, when we used to stand out there and under the tunnel, and they'd play on Altoona, and those 12, 13,000 fans would be screaming, the chills would just go over you. And like Jimmy Nardella said tonight, there's times when I stop and think what that was, and I still get the chills too. And like I said, I'm one of the guys that John was talking about that didn't come back to the reunions, and I live here. But when Jim told me, and I said, yeah, that sounds great. And I was anticipating this, but I didn't know how good it was going to be until I walked in last night. And it's been tremendous. And coaches, thank you for everything. Thank you.
Next up, Jim Hudson. Yeah, another lineman.
Thanks, Jim. I just wanted to share a mistaken judgment I made and make a long overdue apology. The mistaken judgment, when I first heard from Jim, as most of you did, I thought, this is really terrific, especially because of the perspective. That 10-0 season, we were all 16, 17 years old. I really don't think we appreciated what had happened, what we were accomplishing. Now, thanks to Jim and the guys, here we are, late 40-something, early 50-something, mature adults. We're here to really understand and appreciate what was accomplished in that 1962 season. The mistaken judgment I made is I never realized until I got here last night that when we walked in the door, it was 1962 again. I was standing down at the other end. I lit up a cigarette, and I saw Coach Strom, and the first thing I thought was, what the hell am I going to do with a cigarette? I'm 50 years old. I got a kid who's a senior in college, and I'm hiding my cigarette. So that started to bring it back into perspective. And then I saw Steve Howe. And the first thing that went through my mind, now I'm an adult, responsible executive, the first thing that went through my mind is, Steve, what the hell are you doing downfield on a 50-out pass play? You're a tackle. Well, this is what calls for the apology. For almost 35 years, I've been blaming Steve Howe for having that pass called back in the Keith Roosevelt game. And I thought it was pretty dumb. But tonight, for the first time in almost 35 years, Steve explained to me why he was downfield. Because I asked him, what the hell are you doing down here? He said for the first 3 quarters of that game, that damn Eddie Trexler was pounding on me, and I couldn't take any more. I was going after him. I didn't care whether it was a pass play or not. So it's your fault the pass was. This is obviously a very special group. I think that in the scrapbook there were 2 undefeated teams, 1941, 3. That's a very special thing, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it. Not a very big part, but a part of it in 62. I guess while everybody's thanking the coaches, it's really hard to express to all the coaches how we feel about them, but I don't think any of us can say anything in words that expresses how much we respect and appreciate them as much as the fact that we're all here this weekend. Very special thing. Thanks, Coach. Thank you all.
Dave Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Now, I shouldn't really say a whole lot here because I was only a sophomore. I just didn't play much. The only reason Coach Strom brought me up the second game of the year was because he wanted to tip nobody off. He wanted to play a little better. But there's a special thread that runs, for me anyhow, the special thread that runs through all of this, and a lot of you know who you are if you just look through the picture of the team of 62, and a lot of them played for my father at Roosevelt. And my father's friends are counted here tonight. Coach Strom, Harry Dingus, Jack Hopper, and his carpool guy, Glenn Butler. The carpool. And also the poker bunch. We financed, you would have financed the whole college education from that. Because they had one guy to fix the pipes when they got out of the pot. Mr. Dingus. But seriously, this has reminded me a lot, and my wife reminds me of this a lot. Why don't you stop living in the 60s? And I'm thinking, well, hell, Al Bundy lives. Right? The other undefeated team that we were talking about, Jack Hopper was on the 41 team, I think, right, Jack? The other one was my father's team, the 37 team, of which Coach Strom was a member. And I just want to tell you guys, it's been great seeing you again. I do want to tell you about Fogel, though. Two guys I really single out for this, because I didn't mention Rick either, and I love Rick. Mr. Ricketts, the only guy I ever saw play the outfield in baseball, non-football related, who gave him the excuse to coach Burr. And I have many witnesses to this. Bobby, why didn't you catch the ball in center field? Well, Coach, I couldn't. I was running. My eyeballs were bouncing up and down. And the only reason he was a quarterback in junior high. And he had that 62 as his number. If anybody remembers, I don't know if you remember, Jeff, 62? The only thing you remember. He's the only guy that hasn't changed a bit besides Eddie Drexler. And the last thing, Rick, I don't know if I should say this or not, because you were involved with one of my great aunts. Poor Rick, they changed the gear shift on the cars, and he had to go back to Michigan State for a year. But guys, it's been great seeing you all, even Chucky. And I hope that sometime we can maybe have this thing again, Jimmy. Jimmy England, Sam Manuzzi, Danny McKnight, and Phil Shawley did a fabulous job on this thing. And I know that everybody appreciates seeing all the guys, and especially the coaches, who I've known for a lot of them for a long time. And they're just great people. And you should all be as lucky in your life to know those people. Thanks. Anybody else? Danny McKnight.
He called me up because I played center my junior year, and I hurt my neck because Coach Ripkins had pulled my face mask so many times. I decided I better do something else. They moved me to end, and Earl didn't have that propensity to grab my face mask, which helped my neck immensely. You know, I speak from the heart. I've done some public speaking in Butler, and of course, I was a Pennsylvania State police officer, and I probably addressed a lot more people in unusual circumstances than most of you in this room. Some of them with guns drawn, some of them without guns drawn. But I speak from the heart, and I write from the heart. I found it always best, because the heart doesn't lie. Problem is, when you speak one time, you can't memorize what you've written. But I do write and speak from the heart. And this team meant an awful lot to people who were near and dear to us, our parents, our coaches, our city. I was sitting in Butler last weekend, 100 miles from Altoona and 33 years removed, thinking about coming home. It hasn't been a long time since I've been home. My mother just died recently. I've come home for the class reunions. I have plenty of friends in town, and I have many fond memories of this city. But sitting in Butler this past weekend, my adrenaline was pumping. I was sitting in my big cushy leather chair, kind of waiting for the first hit. We all remember what that first hit was like, because you really never felt confident until you took a little rattle in your helmet and you said, okay, I can continue with this. Many in August, I'm a jogger. It may not look like it. They call me the fastest fat man in Butler. But I jog 5 times a week. Pretty good. I've done the Pittsburgh Marathon, all 26 mile, 385 yards. And every August when I'm running and I smell the new mowed grass and that aroma eases past my nose, I sometimes think of the football practices that we had on that grass field behind the stadium. Last night, as we were standing there, I was wondering on that beautiful artificial turf if these kids that are playing nowadays will have the same memories, because there's no grass to smell there. Helping with the weekend heightened all my senses toward the memories of fall practices. I was really surprised at how much I could recall. I mean, I could recall plays like 44 right, 84 left, 62 trap, 86 counter, 88 right. Those plays all came through my mind vividly as I sat in that leather chair thinking about speaking here tonight. I could see, as I closed my eyes, green, maroon, and white jerseys on a practice field in organized chaos that the coaches called practice. The problem with my memories as I sat there were that they're mine. They weren't ours. This room contains 52 or so different sets of memories, and I hope they're all good memories and are all from the same set of circumstances, that 1962 Altoona High School football team. Team is the key word in that sentence. I think I remember reading once in that scrapbook where Earl told a writer, and it was probably Herb Warner, that this team doesn't contain any stars. It's just 11 men, young men, out there doing their job as best they can. 33 years later, and a life full of happiness and enrichment, I see Earl and the other coaches in a different light. Having finished my career with the Pennsylvania State Police in their Criminal Investigation Assessment Unit, I was being force-fed a lot of information on psychology and its effect on people. Dealing with violent crimes and sexual assaults where there's multiple offenders, it became commonplace to say that the offenders take on the psychology of the dominant figure in the crime. When I look back on our team, all of us and the coaches together, we took on the psychological characteristics of a leader. We took on Earl's characteristics in quite a lot of ways. I don't remember him trying to take any of the headlines or glory from the team, per se. He never tried to take it from his assistants. He was the perfect, quiet leader. Walter Lippmann once said of a leader, and I quote, "The final test of a leader is that he leaves behind him in other men the conviction and will to carry on." I honestly believe that Earl Strome instilled that in each and every one of us in this room. I personally want to thank Earl and the other coaches that are here tonight. They were surrogate fathers, confidants, and men to look up to, all needed by snotty-nosed, immature young men. They rubbed off on all of us in some small way. I don't remember when McDonald's was founded, and I don't recall any of them around Altoona in the year 1962. But I've read Behind the Golden Arches, and I'm sure you saw in today's paper, Ray Kroc has a quote. The founder of McDonald's used to always say, "None of us is as good as all of us." To that end, I want to thank Earl and the coaches, you the team members, in the city of Altoona. I believe that Earl Strom lived by that philosophy long before Ray Kroc founded McDonald's. He had a team of 62 people, and all of us, from Frank Magaracci, the scout team quarterback, to Jerry Sanker, our captain, Big 33 representative, committed ourselves to one goal, and the goal was that of the team. And I believe we're going to bring Earl up now, or the coaches. We're going to bring the coaches up now. And I want you to all go home with fond memories. This weekend may never, ever happen again. We talk about it, and it's a good talk, but it may never happen again. We're all throughout the United States. All of us have our chosen areas, and it may never happen again. I'm glad I was here, because all it does is fortify my resolution that my life from this city was going to the places it was supposed to be, to what's right. And I was taught what's right by the men in this room. Jim?
If you didn't sign up to buy the video, you should. The only memory we're going to have. I'd like to thank Bob Black and Jake Springman. They saw that Earl flew up here from Florida and saw that he gets back, and I want to thank Bob and Jake. Bob's going to save his frequent flyer miles, he told me last night, and going to charter a plane. Next time we're going to go to Florida to do this, and we're going to Earl's place. Steve Howe won the Who's Who. We had 27 guys come in and said, "Who's that?" Next up, the guy who gave us great press, Herb Warner.
Hard act to follow, you guys. First of all, I'd just like to thank Jim and the committee for inviting me, making a part of the football team. I didn't take the bumps and bruises that you guys did, but covering you for that year, I just felt I was part of the team. Back then, you know, we rode on the bus with you guys in the away games, and I always would sit up front and usually talk to Earl. I'd like to say a few things about Earl. You know, the man's an innovator, and I think he proved that when he started the program in Altoona. It took a while, but he got the junior highs on the same wavelength, and it really paid off. As many games as I covered and talked to opposing coaches, Earl was the kind of guy who never had a bad thing to say about the opposing team. He never had a bad thing to say about the opposing coach. It was always a team effort on the part of you guys. And I think back to Mahaffey, the scrimmage with Uniontown. It wasn't a football field, I don't think. I think it was a gravel pit. And I think that's where most of the bloody noses came from. In fact, I think while I was standing there, somebody threw a rock and hit me right in the side of the head and almost knocked me out. I'm not sure who it was, but that scrimmage, I think, was the beginning of this football team. Because I remember in that first half, we got the living hell knocked out of us. And I know we broke, and they always had sandwiches for us. And I know Earl gave a talk, and you guys came back. And I think after that second half, I think it made you guys realize that you were a football team. And the other game I remember is the McKeesport game. All through the years, somebody asked me what game, you know, really sticks to your mind, and it's the McKeesport game. Because when I walked in that locker room after that game, Jerry, his eye was swollen shut. Steve Flanagan had a knot in the side of his head. And Buddy Geist was bleeding from the chin like a stuffed pig. And everybody was bruised and battered. And I think that game also got you guys on a momentum to finish the season. And then that last game, and Earl, I guess you know that was your 100th victory. for you guys to beat Williamsport for the 10-0 record. But I enjoyed covering you. Everybody's, thanking me, but it was so easy to write about that year. No heroes. If somebody got hurt, there was always somebody in to fill in. In that McKeesport game, we were winning 13-9. They were on a 7-yard line, threw a pass, and this little halfback, he was going like hell. Nothing between him and the goal line. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Buddy Geist showed up. Ran the guy down on the 40-yard line as the clock ticked away. So those are the kind of things that I remember. Again, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. And I know I had a hard time recognizing a lot of you guys, but I think everybody recognized me, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Before we get into the coaches, does anybody else want to say anything? Nobody?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was a clean socks, joggers, t-shirt.
Yeah. They say whenever you leave this world for a better place, the only things you get to keep are what you gave away. These coaches gave us a lot to keep. First up's Carl Luckner.
Well, as you know, educators are never prepared. Well, however, I've heard a few good stories here tonight. I won't repeat them. I would like to recognize the fact that I felt it a privilege to coach. Unfortunately, I became a counselor, and in my 10th year of coaching, they said, well, we've had enough of you, Luckner. You get to do the counseling, let the coaching to those who can really do it. But in the 10 years that I was affiliated with Earl Strong, we had some good times. John Brannick and I went on a scouting trip. We were scouting in Keystone. Came back, turned in a report. They made some suggestions at the meeting, made their game plans for the following week. Then the game progressed quite well. First half, when we played the Keystone, scores 21-0. Second half, something happened. Keystone come back and they scored 21 more. They scored 21-21. It ended that way. We go to the meeting on Sunday night. John and I walk in, we're on the bus. Earl says, what the hell's the matter with you guys? Did you stay for the second half? Earl always had something good to say about us. We enjoyed working with him and coming back and seeing this route tonight. There's just memories here that just keep jumping up. I could tell stories about Nicodemus. I could tell stories about Bobby Principal, but we'll keep it clean. I just enjoyed working with you, and I just hope that in some small way, as a coach, I was able to help some of you in some way on your road of life. And I just appreciate being asked to come back. Sorry JJ couldn't make it, because he had a nickname for every player he ever saw. But I do want to thank you, and I want to congratulate the committee for getting this together. I think they did a super job, and as I think you, the undefeated team of 1962 did. Congratulations.
Dean Rossi.
Thank you. I was listening to all you players. A lot of I was at Roosevelt with Glenn Butler. Glenn was the head coach, and I was the assistant. So I was just a scouting guy. I got sent on all the trips by Earl all over the place. And I heard a lot of the same stories that Carl just mentioned. A lot of times Earl said, Dean, did you actually go to some of these games? Especially the one about Indiana, which you guys weren't involved in, but I'll never forget that one. That and Boys High in Brooklyn, New York. I guess the thing I have to say about Earl, I was, like you guys, I was very fortunate to play for Earl at Bellevantis. And I know about his quiet, patience, discipline, never yelled at anybody, but we give his heart and soul. And Danny McKnight's mentioned that, and we at Bella felt the same way. And I also feel very strongly about Earl giving me an opportunity to coach. He's the one that gave me the opportunity to start coaching at Roosevelt. And I'll never forget the day I got hired because I was hounding him to death to help me get a job. I just got out of service, I didn't have a job. And I said, Earl, I need a job, and we don't have anything. But the night he hired me, and there's two coaches that aren't here this evening, Wally Fields, who I played for at Bellevantis, and Ronnie Carano, and George Varner. They're all three fellows that have passed away that have been part of my life here at Altoona High School. But I remember going to Earl's basement, and Harry Dingus, Jack Hopper, Ron Rickens, Wally Fields all showed me how to run right 44, left 44, and I thought, oh my God, what is this? I used to run a single wing back at Bellevantis. I didn't know what the T formation was. That's how far back I guess, but that's the way we learned. But Earl's patience with me, and I'll tell you what, I had the opportunity because of him and his staff, myself, to better my own career, which finally led up to the National Football League. I went around the country and I saw programs at Southern Cal, UCLA, Texas Southern, and so forth. Earl Strom and his staff was so far ahead of the game back in high school football in the 60s. I saw major college programs that wasn't structured or organized as well as Earl had the program here at Altoona. It was not an easy task when Earl came here to get Roosevelt and keep kids to play together. There were two separate schools here. They were running different offenses, different defenses. It was kind of, I don't want to use the word chaotic, but it was not an organized, structured program. People all around, everywhere I've gone, said, how did Altoona High School win back in the 60s? It was Earl Strom and his coaching staff, along with players like you, that were so dedicated to listen and to learn the patience of just repeating and repeating, as Danny has mentioned, to do something right. There's teams all over this state that can't run programs like you people here in Altoona High School have. There's been people tried and they failed. So a big pat on the back to Earl and his coaching staff that was here in the 60s. I'm just glad to be a very small part of it, and that's all I was in the early 60s. And to you guys that played, I had the opportunity to have some in wrestling, Bobby Black. I had Jeff and Jake running hurdles for me in track, and Mildy was a wrestler, so I did have an opportunity to coach them. You were a very dedicated group. And when I went back to Hollingsburg last night to our game out there, they said, first question you ask is kind of funny, who was the big star in those teams? I said, there weren't any stars in that team. Those kids were just good players. I'm just privileged that you guys decided to invite me back. Thank you.
My boy played baseball. This guy's grandson played baseball, and they really treated us good, and every inch a gentleman. He's quite a tribute to Coach Strom's staff, Glenn Butler.
Thank you, Jim. Boy, that's a dandy. I would like to pay Dean a compliment. He was an excellent head coach, and I wish him lots of success from now on. Earl, met him. I was on the first Keith undefeated, unscored, untied team, 1936. In fact, 2 months ago, I gave Mr. Foose a framed picture of that team, which hangs in the main office. Now, Keith's had some good ball clubs, but we were the first. First year I beat Roosevelt. The team before us, I was beefing some of those guys, tied them 13-13. and broke the jinx. But the way I met Earl, we came up and we thought we were pretty hot shots. You know, we'd been undefeated in big ball club. And they mentioned, I had Paul Adams at that time and Mr. Morris. And he said, by the way, he says, we're going to have to scrimmage at varsity. And he said, I want you guys to give it a go. I was playing guard at 180 pounds. They put 6 guards laying along the sidelines because that team they killed us. And of course, then that year was on the JV, we were undefeated, and the following year was on the JVs for a while, we were undefeated. And then we followed Earl down to Shippensburg, and again, I got leveled quite a few times down there by Earl too. And but it was a pleasure to work for this gentleman. And as soon as you mentioned Earl's name, even to this new coach we have, he said, oh, you played with Earl? And I said, yes. And I said, I worked for him at Roosevelt too. He said, so he's quite the guy. And I said, yes, he is. But I want to thank all you gentlemen for inviting me. And I didn't realize how many young people had been on the Roosevelt squad until I looked at your picture on that placemat. And I told my wife, I said, you know, you don't get many pats in the back. But these gentlemen invited me tonight. And I said, it was a real pleasure, and I've enjoyed it. And good luck to all of you. You all are very prosperous, and you've made a success of your life. And that's up to your varsity coaching staff here. So thanks again, Jim, and all your committee.
Next up's a Juniata boy. The coach for us, and 13th Warder, Bob. Yeah, played baseball. I always liked this guy. He was always, you know, he lit up a cigarette after practice. I thought that was cool. And he had this blonde pick him up at the Thunderbird. Boy, and I really liked that. So, Jack Hopper. Before we go on, did everybody have a chance to look at the scrapbook? Jack lost his blanket. You know, did you see that? He said after he came back from the war, he didn't know where it was, right? So last year, they gave him another blanket. I called a guy who owned a Fairy White Laundry in Juniata, and he found the original. And he said a girl used to bring this in, a different girl every week, and have it laundered. He kept it, and tonight we'd like to give this to you, Jack. There it is. By the way, Joe Cohen wants the other one back.
Gentlemen, it's a real treat to be here. You know, football has been a great deal to me. It's been a big part of my life. And I've been very fortunate with it. It's done a lot of things for me. Created guys like you. You know, last night when I came in UVA here and I got them meandered around through the group here and listening to all the stories, I was so pleased and happy that I was a coach, an assistant coach for Earl Strong, and I got a chance to meet you guys, hear you talking about your kids and the things that you've done through your life. It's great. Now, high school football is something. I heard some guy mention here that Earl was a quiet, unassuming guy. Well, let me tell you something. I've seen Coach in action. And believe me, he can hit. I've seen a few he's hit. But it was an honor to be on Earl's coaching staff. And most of my duties were scouting. I coached a JV team. I had a lot of you kids on the football team. And I appreciated you. And you've always been my friends. And high school football, you know, it's special to me. And I can remember that football at Altoona High School started in 1909. And it's been going on for approximately 79 years. 1909 we played 1 year, and the guy's name was Raymond Sharp. He was a head coach, and he played 6 football games. He won 2, lost 4, and tied 2. And then football was discontinued until 1910. 1910 it stopped, and it didn't. They didn't play any football out in high school until 1917, and then they started it over again. And football out in high, there's only been 3 undefeated teams. I might say before I mention about those 3 undefeated teams that a coach of mine, Barry Dingus, who taught me to play football, believe me, he did. He played on the 1931 football team, and that team won 11 and lost 1. 1 victory shy of being in that elite undefeated group. Then in 1937, Coach Strome played on what I think possibly was one of the best high school football teams that Altoona High School ever had. They won 11 straight. In 1941, I had the honor of playing on a good football team out in high school, and Ken Bashir was my coach. And Harry was one of the assistants on Coach Bashir's team. And we were fortunate enough to win them all. So there's only actually been, in 79 years of football out in high school, there's only been 3 undefeated teams. And this 62 team happens to be one of them. And man, I think that's great, fellas. Believe me, I'm real proud of it. I'm happy to be here and be associated with a group of men like this. And I watched the kids out there last night, and the way the guys were out there, and the things that happened, and the way we talked here in UVA, and I'm just so happy to be part of it. And I want to thank Jimmy and his crew, Danny and Sandy, and there's another one in there yet too. Bill Shaw. Yeah, boy. And the job that you guys did was excellent. And I appreciate it, and I'm glad that I could be part of this game. And I want to thank you once again for inviting me to this situation. And I'm real proud of you guys, because you're one of those elite groups out in high school football. Thank you.
Get your blanket.
We're going to love this on my pay. Beautiful guy.
We're getting this reunion together. We kicked it around. Well, we'll just have the seniors, and then we'll have the juniors, and then we had another meeting, and we thought, well, we'll have seniors and some of the juniors, and then maybe Chucky Brenner, he started, and Eddie and Buddy Geis, and so I was talking to Ron Rickens, and he said he kind of brought it all into perspective. He said, "Hey Jim," he said, "we were a team." And he said, "You have to invite everybody." I said, "You're right, Coach." So Rick was kind of the buffer. You could talk to Rick. I often said to him, "Why didn't I play that much Friday?" Rick never said anything. So next up's Ron Rickens.
Thanks, Jim. Gentlemen, I can't tell you how great it is for me to be here, but before I have say what I'd like to say, Ray Volz stopped at my house this evening and asked me to present this spike to Earl. And the spike is a symbol for the city of Altoona and for what it has meant and so forth, and being railroad town. And that Earl, having been here, played here, and knows what Altoona is all about, and then of course coaching, asked me to give this to him. And Earl, I think you have one other one, if I'm not mistaken. Do you not? It was given to you. But 2 or 3 more. But he asked me to give it to you, so I'm going to start out by handing this to you, Earl, from the city of Altoona. Gentlemen, I was the youngster on the staff. I was very fortunate where Earl had an opportunity to hire whomever he wished. And I was just coming out of school at that time. And I had known Earl and the staff because my high school coach was very good friends with Coach Strong. And I must admit that Duffy Doherty, my college coach, helped me as well. But when I came here, I must admit I knew absolutely nothing. And I can say what I had learned there, but Earl kind of took me under his wing, and I can honestly say he said to me, "We run the football, and what we're going to do is we're going to have a good line." And there was a young man, or a man before me, had done very well as a line coach, and he gave me that opportunity to take over, and I had a lot of big shoes to fill. And it was a case where he said the interior of the line is very important, and we look our people over in the junior high schools, and he would say, choose whomever you wish to be the guards in the center, because that's where it all begins, so to speak. And we were very fortunate. We were evaluating you people when you were in the junior high schools, and as you came up, it was a case where we'd have meetings and so forth and talk about, do we need to switch people around and so forth. So I was blessed that when you played for me, I really appreciated what you had done for me as a coach in that area. But Earl hiring me, and I know that the first year I was here, I was with Jack Hopper more than I was with my wife. Jack and I went to every game, and we scouted. And it was a case where I got to coach our particular interior line, and I'd never get to see them play on Friday until I'd come back and we'd look at the film on Sunday, and we'd grade them. And I want to tell you, at that time, it was kind of strange. I think, if I remember rightly, Jack and I didn't see a game until the 6th game, and I believe we played in Burton Hershey, if I remember rightly. And it was a case, let me tell you what, did I learn something about football? I thought I knew something, but I learned a great deal. Jack Hopper taught me a lot about scouting, what to look for, the situations, down and distances, what Earl wanted to in reference to their plays and the personnel and so forth. When we would go to meetings, I can say that Coach, you might respect him very well as being a quiet individual, and he was. But when he got mad or upset, he let us know about it. But I can honestly say, when we went to a meeting, you were permitted, if I may use that term, to voice your opinion. And if we didn't like something, we could say it. But if he didn't like it, it stayed the way he wanted it. I can tell you that right now. But over the years, Harry Dingus, we traveled a lot of places, and it was a case where when the coaching staff got a chance to go to McKeesport or to Easton or to Neshaminy together, because we may have been playing a Saturday night game and the other teams were playing Friday, I think we, and I was the youngster as I say that, we developed a bond. We were very close. Wally knew the secondary real well, and he would help all of us. I think I learned a great deal about that. I think that Earl made it important that every one of us know all the positions. And I can say, when I first came there, I made some really bad mistakes on telling people what their blocking assignments were. And you know why? It wasn't written down. This coaching staff knew 62 and 48 and 44 pitch and 44 and 86 and 86 counter, and I was supposed to learn it in the period of time when it came. And we'd go on the field, and I had so damn many things running through my head, you think you had it bad, and I would tell somebody to do the wrong thing. And I think Lou Glasshauser can attest to that. And Coach would say, well, who told you to do that? Coach reckons. And I used to kind of sheep down and say, I goofed. I'll remember it next time. I think the next year, Coach put out a playbook. I learned the plays the following year. That's how long it took me to learn that playbook. But again, when I go back to Harry, in the case where I had to know how to run the 62 step that the quarterback did. I had to know where the hands were. I had to know how to put the ball in and fake and so forth. Because what Coach had taught us, when we went to the junior high schools and visited with their coaches as they were having practice, we were supposed to help them if there was a problem on offense, if there was a problem on defense. And I really believe that helped the program a great deal. I think that the people that we were seeing, and I think it also did something else. It got the junior high schools to see us and to realize that, gee, we weren't the guys up here that everybody was saying, well, that guy's a tough guy and he does this and he does that. But I think they got to respect us a little bit because we say, gee whiz, this guy's a teacher. He's able to get down in the trenches, so to speak, and teach us exactly what has to go on. So I think that's another thing that Earl had done that really helped us out. As the years progressed and so forth, I think what helped our Coach, I want to say Coach Strome's program, we stuck together as coaches. Nobody left. And it was a case where the junior highs had done so well, the JV coaches were doing exceptionally well, and the guys on the varsity, if I can say this, we just had the chance of honing things up a little, and fortunately we had you people who were doing the job for us, and that helped us when it come down to winning those ball games. And I think perhaps, as has been alluded to, the discipline and desire that you people had attributed a great deal to the success that Earl has had and the Altoona football program, and particularly you, the year that you went undefeated. I was only a part of it, and I was so proud to be a part of it. When Jim called me on the telephone and he said, Coach, we're thinking about getting together, and I was elated. I said, oh my gracious, that was a great time in my life because I appreciated having been at Altoona and with the respect that we had gotten all over the state. And I said, I think it's a great idea. And of course, he called me a couple times and he had said that I thought it was a good idea if everybody came. And it's a shame that the people who are not here, as Dean has pointed out, George Warner and of course Ron Carrata and Wally Fields. I remember many times as we were talking about Herb Warder went with us, and I think people used to think that Herb was part of the coaching staff. And I think Herb knew more about what was going on as much as the coaches did, because we confided in him and talked to him, and we would let him know what we hoped to do and what the teams were and their personnel and so forth. And getting back to what Jim had said about bringing everybody together, I must admit, I'm very proud of this. I have a yearbook for every year that I've taught at Altoona High School. I went back and got the yearbook out, and I looked back at that team and looked over some things, and boy, did it bring back some nice memories. And then when Jim dropped off my jacket and my hat and the mug and the booklet, the first thing, I picked the booklet up and I said, oh my gracious, and I went in and sat down in the living room, and I opened that up and I got chills. And yeah, Dan, you were in there quite a bit, I realize that. But having gone through that, I leafed through it and I talked to Dean and saying the fact is I read what I could read in about 2 hours' time, and then I leafed through it and I made up my mind. I'm going back and read every darn article that's in there because that's how important it is, and I was so proud of the fact that I was just a part of your accomplishments. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I just think that the coaching staff helped me a great deal, and it helped me, and Earl got me ready, so to speak, and backed me when it came time to become a head coach. And I thought he had done well with me, and I was only sorry that I didn't do as well as perhaps I should have done. But when I would just take this time now to say thank you, gentlemen, for having me be a part of what you had accomplished, and the committee. Guys, I think you have done a great, great service to all of us and to the city of Altoona. And it was a thrill to be here, but it was a thrill last night to go out to Mansion Park and be recognized by the people in the stands and so forth for the accomplishments that you people had done. I thank you very kindly. God bless you, and good luck.
I'm voting for Ron. In 1957, I got a job at the cricket field. I sold Cokes, 10 cents. What? Yeah, Cokes. And you had a tray of 25, and you went in the stands, and when you got back, Jimmy George, a guy by the name of Jimmy George ran it. You'd give him all your money, and he'd give you a little chip. That represented a quarter. And that's what you made every tray you sold. It was during the NABF tournament at the time. At the end of the day, I'd lay my money on a table, and the other guys get $10 or $12, and I'd get $4 or $5. And he said, "Jim, what's the matter?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, I go to places where they don't buy much Coke, you know, but I'd sell out real quick, and I'd watch a ball game. And I really enjoyed that. There was a little guy played third base. He was a heck of a ball player. He could really play. And Mike Ditka, I think, played that year. He came over from Pittsburgh. Galen Hall come up from Williamsburg and played on the same team. And this guy was a heck of a ball player. And he gave us a lot of press. And he gave us a lot of press for this reunion. I'd like him to come up, Jimmy Lane. Good third baseman, Bob. Good third baseman.
That's when I can bend over for ground balls again. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to, I don't know what I should do first. Thank Jim publicly for inviting me to be part of this, or apologize for not being here last night. I was at the game, and also this afternoon I was at Penn State, so I just did pop in here about, I did get to hear Coach Rickens' expose, so I'm glad I didn't miss that. But I just want to say, you know, publicly, most of you guys are no longer around the area, but take it from someone who has spent all of his life in Altoona. You people truly were a part of the glory days of Altoona football, because it really hasn't been quite the same since most of you guys left town. But believe me, it's really nice to see a lot of you. I hope to get around and reintroduce myself to some of you I haven't seen for a really long time. And I know Jim just did a tremendous amount of work, and I know he's been thanked tonight by a lot of people, but believe me, Jim really broke his back to pull a lot of this together, and I know he had some help from other fellows, but I was involved directly with Jim coming in and giving me some calls and everything, and he really did a great job, and I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's really nice to see all of you guys here. It really is. Again, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your time here, and you're welcome back anytime.
Old Judy Attaboy and I sat down the other day, and we were counting the football players that Harry Dingus sent to college, and we lost track about 65. So here's a guy who put a lot of players in college, Harry Dingus.
Thank you, Jim. I'm looking over here to my right, and I'm looking at two quarterbacks. I apologize. I'm looking at one and a would-be quarterback. He got up here and wondered why he was a quarterback. After 33 years, I'm still wondering too. He doesn't realize when we took him out of there, we did him a favor. You know, there's negative sides to football. We have scouting reports and meetings at Earl's every Sunday. We start at 6 o'clock, and sometimes they go to about 2 o'clock in the morning. And we would grade the films.
Now, I came here last night expecting to enjoy myself. But when I get in here and met Mel Fry, he jumped me right away. After 33 years, I gave him a minus 26 on his quarterbacking. Now, we have these meetings before the season starts, and we go over all the offense and all the plays and all the technicalities on it. And after we go over all that, I asked, when are we going to go over the passing offense? And Earl said, what passing offense? You know, everyone has a hero. Earl had his. His was Woody Hayes of Ohio State. 3 yards and a cloud of dust. That was Earl's philosophy. And Earl copied everything that he did. And it got cold as hell out there sometimes. And us out in Ohio, Woody Hayes had on a sweatshirt. That's all he wore. It would be snowing, cold. Earl, be here snowing. We all had on those jackets. We're pretty comfortable. Earl was out there with just that sweatshirt on, snowing and cold. And Wally Field said to me, he says, hell, doesn't Earl know that Woody wears thermal underwear under that stuff? I retired in 1965, and I wanted to coach a couple more years. But Earl and I were in the coach's room, and I said, Earl, I said, I have something I want to say to you. I said, your antics on the field are hard to take. I said, you're pacing up and down and yelling. I said, it's hard to take. And if you don't change your ways, I'm going to resign. He shook my hand. He says, Harry, I'll see you later. Good luck. Thank you.
Next up is the boss, Earl Strunk. Guys. I'll tell you what, I don't really see that there's a whole lot more to say. It seems like most everything's been said. As far as football, I can talk it all day, and I wouldn't want to keep you here all evening. But this committee did a terrific job, and thanks very much for all of it. I really never heard of I heard of class reunions. I never heard of a football reunion before. This is really nice. Now, in regards to us never throwing the ball and all this and that, they're pretty, football is a game you can win if you don't make too many mistakes. Throwing the ball around, you usually make a bunch of them. Besides that, while you're working on passing, we were working on blocking and tackling, and that was the main thing that I tried to impress on people, was the fact that we kept it simple. I know one time we were getting ready to play opening game with Williamsport. I think it was Williamsport. Mel Fry came to me and he says, Coach, do you think we have enough plays for this game? First game of the year. I said, oh yeah. I said, we probably won't use them all. We only had 6 or 7.
when I think of Williamsport, I always think that they were the, when I come up here, our kids sort of shied off. They don't want to hear Williamsport. And I know the first 6 years I was here, they defeated us. And that really hurt me because a couple of those games could have went either way. Well, then for the next 14 years, they didn't defeat us anymore. You know, if you stay with it long enough, the worm will turn. And seeing what's happening here in Altoona football, I think the rather seems like everybody's ready to turn it around. Awful good atmosphere here. The coach has a lot of enthusiasm. First time I met him was last night. Went out to toss the coin, and I said, "What do you want to?" He said, he said, "You've been around this longer than me." He said, "Whatever you want to do, kick or receive," you know. So we did win the toss. Everything worked out all right, right up until the last second. No, that was real fine. And I was never prouder of a group of boys than what we have right here. Let me talk a little bit about undefeated football. I know when I went into this, my college coach told me when I started coaching, he said, well, he says, some years you'll win them all and some years you'll lose them all. I never lost them all. But just about, but the first year I come to Altoona, this was terrible. But we did win them all a few times, and this was one of those teams that you boys have participated in. And what made me feel so bad, the year before, 1961, we lost one game. We shouldn't have. We lost to an inferior team. But I noticed this happens right up through junior high, high school, and college. The team wins 5 or 6 games in a row. Everybody tells them how good they are. Well, they think that all they have to do is show up on the field. And that's what happened to us. One game, lost it 6-0, didn't do anything all night, we didn't deserve to win it. But then the next year, our football players profited by the mistakes of the previous year. And that's one of the reasons we had this undefeated season. These players on this team decided in the summer sometime and got together that we were going to have an undefeated team. And we didn't have the greatest material in the world. We had just hard workers, they were good football players. They kind of keep their mouths shut and play football. Don't read the press too carefully how good they are. And that happens. I think Penn State had a little of that today. I wasn't sure they was ever going to get started. But I want to thank everybody that's associated with this program and who cooperated so well with me. Everybody told me when I came here there would be no cooperation. And I didn't run into that. Not all the time. No, most people. You know, Altoona is a proud community, and they like to win, like most everybody else. Winning is very important. I don't know. You know what made me feel bad the first year I was here. Some of the teams that we were playing were so much better than we were. They come from better programs. Maybe they were better coached, I don't know. We didn't have any speed. Kids didn't know that you had to hit other people. But this group right here, I know I spoke at the Rotary the year that this group was coming up. And those men in the Rotary are big businessmen and so forth, and I told them, I said, well, this year we have about the smartest group that we ever had. There's a lot of good students in this crowd. And I said, that might hurt us.